come back to something that might be impacting your life. Do you have any unpaid traffic fines? Be careful, because you might find you're unable to renew your driver's license or your car disc. The organisation Undoing Tax Abuse says it has received many complaints from motorists who've been told there are enforcement orders against them over unpaid fines, and unless they pay up, they cannot renew their car information. Now, OUTA says the Road Traffic Infringement Agency is trying to enforce the payment of fines dating back to 2019, which they say is simply not legal. I'm joined now by Advocate Stephanie Fick. She's Executive Director of OUTA. Advocate, thank you so much for joining us. So what is happening here? What exactly have some motorists been experiencing?
I think it is being faced. When you go to the licensing centre after standing in a queue, you are then faced with the problem that you cannot renew your driver's licence or your motor vehicle licence because there are indeed an enforcement order against your name. Now, that is legal in terms of R2, so there's nothing on towards with that. It is the way that the administrative system is being applied that we are worried about.
All right, so you're suggesting they've missed a couple of steps. What are they not applying correctly?
Now, the new R2 Act, or the previous one and the new one that the Minister has announced is going to be rolled out July next year, includes quite a number of steps. But here's the most important one. You will get an infringement notice, and then you have certain choices. If you do not do anything within 32 days, you get a courtesy letter. And then if you didn't do anything after 32 days, then the RTIA can issue an enforcement order. So if you have an infringement order in 2019, but nothing has been done, and then all of a sudden there's an enforcement order, there's a step missing. They cannot issue an enforcement order if it wasn't followed by a courtesy letter, who also has to be serve on you within certain time periods. So we can't just simply ignore, although it is a very laborious sort of system and administrative process, RTIA is solely responsible for R2, and we cannot stand by and see them, well, let's say, abuse the system.
Do you believe that this is a deliberate move to force motorists to pay up?
Very difficult to say. I mean, in discussions, we are surely not agreeing on what is exactly happening. But I can tell you that, to all of a sudden, create enforcement orders for infringement notices that were issued in 2019, the only deduction you can make is this is about money. This is not about road safety. This is not about creating better motorists. This is not about curbing deaths on our roads. This is purely about making money.
But, for a moment, let's just consider the fact that if you've been given a traffic fine, and let's presume it's all been done in the correct way and you did infringe on the law, you owe money. So why should you, as the person who needs to pay the fine, say, well, I need all sorts of special things before, and you can't stop me from having a licence in the meantime? You can't stop me from renewing my licence.
RTIA followed the process. And I am going to assume, when talking about these things, you do assume that if someone firstly knows about a fine and that they are guilty of the fine, that they will pay the fine. If they received the fine and they are not guilty, then they can make representations. What we are against is that, some of the people didn't even know that they have these infringement notices. So somewhere along the line, there's something wrong with the process of motorists actually getting their fines. And then if you want to enact a law with certain steps, you should abide by those steps. You cannot expect motorists to be law-abiding and then you do not follow your own rules. It is extremely possible, because I have to believe that, if I know about a fine and I am guilty, that I would pay it. But I would hate to be surprised when I go to the licensing authority that I have an enforcement order against my name for something that I did not know about. And then can I just say, notice is not the system.
Yeah, so I mean, there could just be real glitches, because I'm thinking, let's say you know you've broken the speed limit. You get an infringement notice. Is that basically the fine when, at the moment, the point of breaking? Okay. So then within 32 days, if you don't pay the fine immediately, you should get a court letter, I think you said. If you do nothing 32 days after that, it becomes an infringement order. In other words, you can either challenge it or accept it, and then you really must pay it. What do people do if how do they receive these court letters and the infringement order? Are they WhatsApps? Are they emails? Are they posts? Do we know how they're sent out? How much effort is made to communicate with the motorist?
That's the thing, and it's OUTA can be very confusing. So as OUTA is standing now, that is the administrative adjudication of traffic offences, as it is now, is only applicable in Joburg and Tshwane. So it's only those two provinces. It was never rolled out nationwide, and the demerit system was never enacted. Now, there's an amendment to the OUTA Act that changed some of the sections in the original OUTA Act. For example, currently, you have to be either served personally or you need to get your fine via registered post. And we're not talking about fines that you get directly from a police officer. And this is only, like I said, in Joburg and Tshwane. The new Act makes provision for emails, electronic service, etc., but that act still needs to be signed by the president, but the president must still proclaim a date when it will finally come into operation. And I think that is what the minister was talking about. So currently, only the people in Tshwane and Joburg need to worry about OUTA, and they have to get their fines, their courtesy letters via registered post, and obviously it can be served on them.
Just for the interest of our sort of national audience, what would happen to, let's say, a Cape Townian who's got a number of outstanding fines and they try and renew their licence? Would they be able to?
Yes, because it is only when you get an enforcement order when they can stop you from doing your licence. And may I just add here, I was just quickly referring to NATIS. NATIS is one of those systems that has never been updated. I've heard horror stories about people. Firstly, you get a fine of a car that's not yours. It's legitimately not yours. And if you if you then stand in front of, after standing in a queue, being there the whole day because you are a law-abiding citizen, you want to renew your license and you want to be, a law-abiding motorist. They say that there's an enforcement order against your name for something you didn't do. So NATIS is not the best system ever. And we have an enormous amount of duplicate cars. And then, we already have a system. In other words, for example, let's say Cape Town, is that you will get a fine. You can either pay the fine or you don't. Sometimes and then if you don't pay the fine, you will then get a summons and you can appear in court and you can, say you are guilty, not guilty, whatever the case may be. But it is important for, the opportunity to make representations, which OUTA makes provision for. But an enforcement order is directly linked to OUTA, because it's part of that administrative system.
I'm with you. So it's part of the Joburg.
Currently, yeah.
But it could go nationwide. So here's my last question to you, Stephanie. If you, after waiting in the queue, get to the front of the queue and you want to renew your license disc and you're told, sorry, you have outstanding fines, and you then say, I have no knowledge of this, I did not know this, what do you say to the potentially recalcitrant bureaucrat who's giving you a glare?
I would take my things and go to another station, because I think that there are bureaucrats that is still really just at heart want to help people. They cannot. Can I please just say that they cannot stop you from renewing any type of license if you have outstanding fines.
Unless you've been issued an infringement notice. They might say, well, you probably received an infringement notice. Then the burden is on you to prove you didn't. How do you prove you didn't get something?
No, not even an infringement notice. It's only
an infringement order. But they might say, well, no, as far as my records show, we've issued an infringement order. And then you go, well, I don't know what you're talking about, because the system's dodgy, isn't it?
Yes, because if you didn't receive the infringement notice, you didn't receive the courtesy letter, you weren't provided, firstly, the opportunity to pay a discounted fine, because a certain period of time allows you to pay a discounted fine. You didn't have the opportunity to either make representations or say, listen, I want to go to court because for some other reason, I'm not guilty. Can I just say that RTIA, after, I think, not just OUTA, companies like Fines for You has got an enormous problem with clients complaining about this. RTIA has said that although there's still an enforcement order against your name, they've blocked that now. So when you go to the licensing authorities to license your vehicle or your driver's license, there should not be any reason why you can't do that currently. Until RTIA lifts that ban, you should be able to, no one can stop you from renewing anything. Nobody. But if they do, I would really consider insisting. I would really consider insisting, telling your manager and their manager, sorry. And if still nothing happens, I would really consider, taking my paperwork and maybe go to a different station that maybe they can help you. Yeah. And lodge a complaint. More than welcome to send your complaints to us.
Yeah, and so they simply cannot stop you, and we can tell them that. Thank you very much, Stephanie Fick. She's an advocate. She's also the executive director of the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse. Let's